Robin Duncan Harry Williamson, born the 24th of November 1943, Edinburgh, is a Scottish multi-instrumentalist musician, singer, songwriter and storyteller, who first made his name as a founding member of the Incredible String Band. Career: Williamson lived in the Fairmill Head area of Edinburgh, and attended George Watson's College before leaving at the age of 15 to become a professional musician. At first he performed in local jazz bands, with Gerard Dott, later to be a member of the Incredible String Band, and others, before turning to traditional music as a singer and guitarist. By 1961 he had met and begun sharing a flat with Bert Jansch, and in 1963 they traveled together to London to play the Metropolitan Folk Circuit. By 1965 he had returned to Edinburgh and formed a duo with Clive Palmer, specializing in fiddle and banjo arrangements of traditional Scots and Irish songs. Joe Boyd signed them to Elektra Records in 1966, by which time they had recruited third member Mike Heron as resident band at Clive's Incredible Folk Club in Glasgow. They called themselves the Incredible String Band. Between 1966 and 1974 the Incredible String Band, based around the duo of Williamson and Heron, released some 13 albums, becoming in the UK one of the most popular, best-loved and influential groups of the era. The group also included Williamson's sometime girlfriend Licorice McKechnie. Williamson released his first solo LP, Myrrh, in 1971 when still a member of the Incredible String Band. After the band split up in 1974, he began living in Los Angeles and, for a while, turned his attention to writing, co-writing an espionage novel, The Glory Trap. By 1976 he had returned to music, forming the Merry Band with Sylvia Woods, Celtic Harp, Jerry McMillan, fiddle, and Chris Caswell, flutes, and wire-strung harp. They toured extensively for 3 years throughout the US, Canada, and Europe, and released 3 albums: Journey's Edge, American Stonehenge, and A Glint at the Kindling. After the breakup of the Merry Band, Williamson returned to the UK and started to tour solo, offering sets dominated by traditional stories set to song. Releases of this period include Songs of Love and Parting and Legacy of the Scottish Harpers. He has also written a tutorial book of English, Welsh, Scottish and Irish fiddle tunes, ISBN 0-8256-0165-7, as well as one for the penny whistle, ISBN 0-8256-0190-8. Williamson's live album with John Renbourn, Wheel of Fortune, 1995, was nominated for a Grammy, as was the Incredible String Band album, Hangman's Beautiful Daughter, in 1968. In the late 1990s he took part, with Palmer and Heron, in a reformed Incredible String Band. Williamson left the band sometime around the start of 2003. Some rumors had it that he was forced out in acrimonious circumstances. The reformed band disbanded once again in 2006. Meanwhile Williamson resumed his solo career, notably on record with a series of albums for the ECM label, Seed at Zero, 2000, Skirting the River Road, 2002, The Iron Stone, 2006, and Trusting in the Rising Light, 2014, as well as his own words. These albums feature material from the likes of Dylan Thomas, William Blake, and Walt Whitman. Musically, these records show him increasingly working in a fusion style, similar in some ways to the avant-garde work of the Incredible String Band in the 60s, which incorporates folk, jazz, Renaissance, classical and Eastern influences. A group of distinguished jazz musicians accompany Williamson on the 3 most recent ECM records, notably violist Matt Maneri, bassist Bar Phillips, Swedish multi-instrumentalist Dale Mahler, percussionist Chess Smith and English sax player Paul Dunmal. Solo discography: Myrrh, 1972, Journey's Edge, 1977, with the Merry Band, American Stonehenge, 1978, with the Merry Band, A Glint at the Kindling, 1979, with the Merry Band, Songs of Love and Parting, 1981, The Fisherman's Son and the Gruagach of Tricks, 1981, Prince Dougie and the Swan Maiden, 1982, Rory Moore and the Gruagach Gaire, 1982, Music for the Mabinogi, 1983, Selected Writings, 1984, 5 Humorous Tales of Scotland and Ireland, 1984, The Dragon Has Two Tongues, 1985, 5 Celtic Tales of Enchantment, 1985, 5 Legendary Histories of Britain, 1985, 5 Bardic Mysteries, 1985, 5 Tales of Prodigies and Marvels, 1985, Legacy of the Scottish Harpers, 1986, Legacy of the Scottish Harpers Volume 2, 1986, Winter's Turning, 1986, Songs for Children of All Ages, 1987, 10 Canon of Songs, 1988. Music for the Newly Born, 1990. Wheel of Fortune, 1995, with John Renbourn. The Island of the Strong Door, 1996. Songs for the Calendarium, 1996. Farewell Concert at McCabe's, 1997, with the Merry Band. Mirrorman Sequences, 1997. Celtic Harpers and Dance Tunes, 1997. Memories, Erinnerungen, 1997. Dream Journals, 1997. Bloomsbury 1997, 1998, with Mike Heron. Gems of Celtic Story 1, 1998. Ring Dance, 1998. Gems of Celtic Story 2, 1998. A Job of Journey Work, 1998. The Old Fangled Tone, 1999. Music for Macbeth, 1999. At the Pure Fountain, 1999, with Clive Palmer. The Seed at Zero, 2000. Just Like the Ivy, 2000, with Clive Palmer. Bloomsbury 2000, 2001, with Reformed Incredible String Band. Carmina, 2001. Skirting the River Road, 2002. Gems of Celtic Story 3, 2002. The Iron Stone, 2006. The Celtic Bard, 2008. Just Like the River and Other Songs for Guitar, 2008. Love Will Remain, 2012. Trusting in the Rising Light, 2014.